There comes a time in every life when you realize that the greatest investment you will ever make is in yourself, not in possessions, not in fleeting approval from others, but in your growth, your peace, and your strength. 2. Love yourself enough to level up means to recognize that you are worth the effort, worth the patience, and worth the discipline it takes to become the best version of yourself. Too often, people search for external validation while neglecting their inner foundation. But the truth is, real transformation begins when you decide that your well-being, your dreams, and your life matter enough to rise above excuses, fears, and doubts. This audiobook will take you on a journey through 11 key lessons, each designed to help you strengthen self-love, embrace growth, and elevate every aspect of your life. With stories, practical examples, and timeless wisdom, you'll learn not only how to believe in your worth, but how to act on it. So, let's begin this journey. Self-love is not arrogance. It is not vanity. It is the quiet, steady recognition that your life has value, and that you are worthy of care, respect, and growth. At its core, self-love is respect. Respect for your body, your time, your energy, and your potential. Without it, everything else you attempt to build in life remains fragile. Imagine a house constructed on weak foundations. From the outside, it might look impressive. Freshly painted walls, polished floors, decorative windows. But no matter how beautiful it appears, if the ground beneath is unstable, the entire structure is at risk of collapsing. The same is true for life without self-love. You may achieve recognition, acquire possessions, or surround for self with people, but without valuing yourself, the pressure of life eventually cracks the surface. Consider the story of a young professional who worked tirelessly to prove her worth. She took on every assignment, stayed long hours at the office, and bent over backwards to gain approval. Outwardly, she was admired, yet inwardly she was exhausted, lonely, and anxious. Why? Because she had built her life on the shaky foundation of external validation, neglecting the deeper truth that her worth did not need to be earned. It already existed. It wasn't until she discovered self-love that her life began to shift. She learned to set boundaries with her workload, prioritize her health, and pursue passions outside her job. The admiration of others no longer defined her. She defined herself. This is the power of self-love. It is not loud. It does not need to shout. Instead, it quietly steadies you. It reminds you to choose foods that nourish your body, conversations that uplift your spirit, and habits that strengthen your mind. It empowers you to say no when something drains your energy and yes when an opportunity aligns with your growth. Many people confuse self-love with selfishness, but there is a vital distinction. Selfishness takes from others without regard for their well-being. Self-love honors yourself in a way that allows you to give more authentically to others. Think of it as filling your own cup. You cannot pour water into someone else's glass if your own is empty. But when you are full, when you are rested, balanced and whole, you give freely, not from depletion, but from abundance. Developing this foundation begins with small choices. It might mean taking 15 minutes each morning for quiet reflection instead of rushing into your day. It could mean surrounding yourself with people who encourage your growth rather than diminish it. It may involve resting when your body needs rest instead of pushing to exhaustion. These may seem like minor decisions, but over time, they become the bricks that build an unshakable foundation. Think of great oak trees standing tall and unyielding through storms. Their strength, does not come from the branches swaying in the wind, but from the roots that dig deep into the soil. Self-love is those roots. Without them, you may survive for a while, but you will not thrive. With them, you can weather storms, adapt to seasons, and continue to rise. One of the most empowering truths about self-love: it does not depend on circumstances. You don't need to wait until you have achieved a certain goal, reached a certain weight, or gained the approval of others to begin. You can decide today, in this moment, that you are enough as you are, while still being worthy of growth. When you begin to treat yourself with kindness, patience, and respect, you send a powerful message, not only to yourself, but to the world: I matter. And when you hold that truth firmly, the world begins to reflect it back to you. So let this be your starting point. Not a perfect version of yourself, but a committed version. A version that says, I love myself enough to take the first step, and the second, and the third, no matter how small. For it is in these steps, taken with self-love, that you lay the foundation for a life of strength, peace, and fulfillment. One of the most profound shifts you will ever experience in life is the moment you truly recognize your worth. Not just intellectually, not just as an idea you repeat to yourself when things get difficult, but when you deeply embody it. When you begin to live, act, and decide as someone who knows that they are enough. The world around us constantly tries to define our value. From an early age, we're measured against grades, appearances, achievements, or approval from others. Slowly, without realizing it, we learn to attach our worth to how much we produce, or how much we are praised. But here is the truth: your worth is not a number, not a title, not an achievement, and not someone else's opinion. Your worth is inherent. It existed the moment you came into this world, and nothing can take it away. Think for a moment about the diamond hidden deep in the earth, long before it is discovered, shaped, and polished. It is already valuable. It doesn't need recognition to be precious. It doesn't need approval to shine. You are the same. Even before you've reached your goals, even before others see your potential. Your worth is unshakable, and yet many people live as if they are optional. They stay in relationships where they are taken for granted. They remain in jobs that diminish their spirit. They silence their voice out of fear of rejection. Why? Because they have forgotten what they are worth. They've convinced themselves that they should be grateful for crumbs instead of reaching for abundance. But recognizing your worth changes everything. It shifts the way you walk into a room. It influences the choices you make. It determines the standards you set for your life. When you see yourself as valuable, you stop chasing those who do not appreciate you. You stop settling for situations that steal your joy. You start aligning your actions with what honors your growth. There's a powerful lesson here. People will often treat you according to the value you set for yourself. If you constantly accept less, less is what you will receive. But when you raise your standards, when you demonstrate through your actions that you respect yourself, the world responds. Take the example of a young artist who struggled to price her work. She often sold her paintings cheaply, afraid that no one would pay more. Over time, she realized she was not just undervaluing her art. She was undervaluing herself. The moment she began charging her true worth, something remarkable happened. Yes, some walked away, but those who stayed appreciated her talent more deeply, and new opportunities began to appear. What changed wasn't her art. It was her recognition of her own value. Practically, how do you begin this shift? Start by acknowledging the qualities in you that cannot be measured. Your kindness, your perseverance, your creativity, your courage. Each morning, write down one quality you admire in yourself. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, this simple act rewires your mind to focus on what is already good within you. Another way is to notice the times when you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. Catch those moments. Ask yourself, if I truly recognized my worth right now, would I still stay quiet? Would I still accept this treatment? Would I still limit my potential? These reflective questions become a compass that guides you toward honoring your value. Remember this, you do not need to prove your worth. You only need to recognize it. Like the sun, you shine whether people notice or not. Like the ocean, your depth remains whether anyone explores it or not. The moment you see yourself as valuable, your entire life begins to level up, because you no longer beg for recognition. You embody it. You no longer plead for respect. You command it. And most importantly, you no longer abandon yourself. You choose yourself again and again. Recognizing your worth is the foundation of self-love. It is the seed from which every other transformation grows. Once you claim it, you will never see yourself or your life the same way again. Loving yourself enough to level up means protecting the most valuable resources you have, your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. And the way you protect them is through boundaries. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People think of them as walls, as barriers that shut others out. But true boundaries are not about isolation. They are about definition. Just as every country has borders to establish where it begins and ends, every individual needs boundaries to define what is acceptable and what is not. They are not about keeping people away. They are about allowing the right people in, on the right terms. Think of your life as a beautiful garden. Without fences, without a gate, anyone could wander in. Some might admire the flowers, but others might trample them. Some might nurture the soil, but others might strip it bare. A garden without boundaries cannot flourish. But when you build a fence, you don't stop the sunshine from entering. You don't stop the rain. You simply create order. You decide who may come in and what must stay out. That is the power of boundaries. They protect what is precious so that it can thrive. Many of us struggle with boundaries because we are afraid. Afraid that saying no will make others unhappy. Afraid that protecting our peace means we are selfish. But the truth is the opposite. When you fail to set boundaries, you give away pieces of yourself until you have nothing left to offer. That does not make you generous. It makes you depleted. And an empty heart cannot pour love into others. Consider the story of a man who constantly said yes. He said yes to extra shifts at work, yes to friends who always needed favors, yes to family members who demanded his time. Outwardly, he seemed helpful, reliable, and strong. But inwardly, he was exhausted, resentful, and burned out. His health declined, his passion faded, and his relationships grew tense. One day, he realized something important. He had been teaching others that his time and energy had no limits. He had trained them to take without giving. When he finally began to set boundaries, something remarkable happened. At first, some people pushed back. They were upset that he no longer sacrificed himself so freely. But over time, he discovered who truly respected him and who only valued what he could provide. The friends who loved him adjusted. The relationships that were draining fell away, and slowly his life regained balance. By saying no, he made room for deeper yeses. Yes to his health. Yes to his peace. Yes to the things that gave him meaning. This is the lesson. Boundaries are not rejection. They are direction. They guide your life toward what aligns with your values. A simple exercise to begin practicing is this. Write down 3 situations where you often feel drained or resentful. Maybe it's always answering work emails at midnight. Maybe it's saying yes to events when you really want rest. Maybe it's tolerating negative conversations that steal your joy. For each one, write a boundary statement. For example, I will no longer check emails after 8 p.m. or I will spend my weekends in ways that refresh me. Boundaries begin with clarity. You must first know what you are protecting. It takes courage to hold a boundary. Some people will test them, some will resist them, but stand firm. For every time you honor your limits, you reinforce your self-worth. Boundaries are not punishments to others. They are promises to yourself. Remember this truth. Saying no to what drains you is not selfish. It is an act of love. Love for your energy. Love for your purpose. Love for the life you are building. Because only when you protect your garden can it bloom fully. And only when you bloom fully can you share your fragrance with the world. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about inviting the right people closer in ways that honor both you and them. And when you love yourself enough to establish them, you create space for peace, strength, and growth to flourish. Life constantly presents us with two doors. One leads to comfort, the other to growth. The door of comfort is familiar, warm, and predictable. It's the path you've walked many times before, and because of that, it feels safe. But the truth is, staying behind that door keeps you repeating the same story, living the same patterns, and experiencing the same limitations. The other door, the door of growth, looks uncertain. It may appear heavy, and when you reach for the handle, you may hesitate. That hesitation is fear whispering, "What if I fail? What if I'm not ready?" But behind that door lies your transformation, your expansion, and the life you were meant to live. Growth demands courage. It demands that you step into the unknown and challenge the version of yourself that wants to stay small. Imagine a seed in the soil. If it chooses comfort, it remains hidden underground, never becoming more than a shell of potential. But when it dares to break apart, to endure the push of the soil, and to reach toward the sun, it becomes a tree that shelters life. That breaking, that discomfort, is the very process that allows the seed to fulfill its purpose. So it is with us. Every stage of growth requires shedding what is comfortable. A student becomes a graduate only by leaving behind the comfort of childhood. A professional grows into leadership only by embracing responsibility that feels overwhelming at first. A person grows emotionally only by confronting fears, letting go of toxic attachments, and daring to love and trust again. Growth is not meant to feel easy. It is meant to expand you. Think about someone who stays in a job that suffocates them. The paycheck feels safe. The routine feels predictable, but inside, their soul is restless. Each day feels like a silent compromise. Then imagine someone who takes a leap into uncertain waters, perhaps starting a new business, learning a new craft, or pursuing a hidden passion. At first they stumble, they doubt, they question themselves. But slowly, through trial and persistence, they unlock new strengths they never knew they had. Which life is richer? Which life is fuller? One woman I once knew spent years in an office role she disliked. She was excellent at her work, yet each night she went home drained, longing for something more. Teaching had always been her dream, but fear of instability held her back. One day, she decided to try. She enrolled in evening classes, learned the craft of teaching, and eventually left her corporate job. The transition was hard. Her income dropped, and her path was uncertain. Yet, for the first time in years, she woke each morning with fire in her heart. Her courage to choose growth over comfort didn't just change her career, it changed her life. This is the truth about growth. It often feels like loss before it feels like gain. You let go of people who no longer align with your journey. You release habits that kept you comfortable but stagnant. You embrace challenges that test your patience and resilience. And in the process, you discover that you are far stronger, far wiser, and far more capable than you ever believed. The tragedy of comfort is that it slowly numbs you. It whispers, "Stay here. It's safe. It's enough." But deep inside, you know it isn't. The gift of growth, however, is that it awakens you. It stretches your mind, strengthens your character, and prepares you for opportunities that only reveal themselves once you are ready. Every day, you stand before those two doors. One is comfort, one is growth. The choice is yours. But remember, comfort keeps you the same, while growth transforms you into who you were destined to be. So ask yourself, in this moment, in your relationships, in your career, in your personal journey, are you choosing comfort or are you choosing growth? There comes a time when holding on does more damage than letting go. To truly love yourself enough to level up, you must learn the art of release. Releasing habits, people, and mindsets that no longer serve the person you are becoming. Many people cling to the familiar, even when it is painful, because the unknown feels frightening. But imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. At first, you adjust, telling yourself you can manage. But as the road stretches on, the weight slows you down, exhausts you, and steals your joy. The truth is, you were never meant to carry those rocks. You only needed the courage to take the backpack off. Life works in the same way. Some relationships, environments, and routines once served a purpose, but now they drain you. Some beliefs you hold. I'm not good enough. I always fail. This is the best I can do. Once acted as shields to protect you from disappointment, but now they trap you. The challenge is not recognizing what holds you back. Deep down, you already know. The challenge is trusting yourself enough to let it go. Consider the story of a man who held on to a toxic friendship for years. His friend constantly belittled him, drained his energy, and sabotaged his confidence. Still, he stayed, convincing himself that loyalty meant never walking away. But one day, he realized loyalty to others should never come at the cost of betrayal to yourself. When he finally let go, the silence felt strange at first. Yet slowly he found peace. Space opened for new, supportive people to enter his life. Letting go is not about anger or bitterness. It's not about cutting ties with hatred. It's about choosing freedom, peace, and growth over the comfort of familiarity. Forgiveness is a powerful part of this process. Not necessarily forgiving others for their actions, but forgiving yourself for carrying the weight for so long. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that no longer helps me grow? Is it fear, a memory, a person? Write it down. Acknowledge it. Then remind yourself letting go is not loss. It is making space for something better. Think of a tree in autumn. It sheds its leaves, not because it hates them, but because it trusts that spring will bring new growth. The tree knows that clinging to dead leaves prevents it from flourishing. In the same way, you must trust that by releasing what weighs you down, you are creating space for renewal. Of course, letting go requires courage. The mind clings to certainty, even when that certainty is painful. You may fear loneliness if you step away from the wrong people. You may fear instability if you leave a job that suffocates your spirit. You may fear failure if you release old identities and embrace a new chapter. But every leap into freedom feels terrifying before it feels liberating. When you let go, you are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself. You are telling the world, I value my future more than I fear my past. Remember, you cannot soar if you are tied down. You cannot rise if you cling to what anchors you. The moment you release what no longer serves you, you create the energy, clarity, and courage to reach higher. So, love yourself enough to let go. Love yourself enough to believe that you deserve better. Love yourself enough to trust that what is enough to trust for you will never require you to shrink, suffer, or stay stuck. Your next level awaits, but you cannot step into it with the hands full of the past. Open your hands, release the weight, and watch how light you begin to feel. Transformation is never the result of one grand decision. It is the quiet accumulation of small, intentional actions, repeated day after day. To love yourself enough to level up, you must embrace the discipline of daily habits. Because habits are the invisible architecture of your life. Think about it. The way you spend your mornings. The thoughts you allow to shape your mind. The choices you make when no one is watching. These are the hidden forces that determine your future. Success, fulfillment, health, and even peace of mind are not built in one moment of motivation. They are built in the rhythm of daily discipline. Imagine two people starting on the same path. One decides each day to rise a little earlier, to exercise for even 15 minutes, to read a few pages of something inspiring, and to journal a single thought of gratitude. The other allows the morning to slip by in distraction, neglects self-care, and waits for the right time to begin improving. At first, the difference is invisible, but after a year, the first person is stronger, clearer, and more confident, while the other feels stagnant, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Tiny habits, multiplied by time, create extraordinary change. One of the greatest misunderstandings about habits is believing they must be huge to matter. In truth, the small ones shape us most. Drinking water before coffee, taking a walk instead of scrolling endlessly on your phone, writing down tomorrow's plan before bed. These practices seem almost trivial until you realize they are votes you cast every day for the person you are becoming. But discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. You will not always feel motivated. In fact, most days you will not. That is why habits are vital. They carry you through when willpower fades. They anchor you in times of chaos and remind you that progress is still possible, even when life feels heavy. Consider the story of an athlete who trained through both triumph and defeat. On days of motivation, his workouts were intense. On days of doubt, he still showed up, even if all he could manage was a short run. Over time, it wasn't his bursts of effort that made him great, but his unwavering commitment to show up, no matter how small the effort. To create powerful daily habits, start simple. Choose 1 or 2 behaviors that align with your vision of the person you want to become. If you dream of being healthy, begin with hydration and movement. If you dream of being wise, begin with reading and reflection. Attach these habits to something you already do, like meditating for 5 minutes after brushing your teeth or stretching before bed. The simpler the habit, the easier it is to sustain. And remember this truth: discipline is a form of self-love. When you commit to daily habits, you are telling yourself, I care about my future enough to act today. You no longer live as a prisoner of mood or circumstance. Instead, you live as a creator of your destiny. It is tempting to wait for inspiration, but inspiration is unreliable. Habits are not. They are the rails that keep you on track, even when storms of doubt or distraction surround you. As the saying goes, first we make our habits, then our habits make us. By cultivating discipline, you honor your worth. You invest in the person you are becoming. So each day, ask yourself, what small act of discipline can I give to my future self today? And then, no matter how small, do it. Because when you love yourself enough to build strong habits, you love yourself enough to level up. There is a moment in every journey of growth when you must face a painful but liberating truth. You cannot carry everything with you into your next chapter. Some habits, some relationships, some old identities, they were meant only for a season. To love yourself enough to level up, you must learn the art of letting go of what no longer serves your highest good. Imagine climbing a mountain. At the beginning, you carry a backpack filled with supplies. At first, it feels manageable. But as you climb higher, the air grows thinner, and the weight begins to slow you down. If you cling to everything you packed at the bottom, you may never reach the summit. The same is true in life. What once felt useful may now be holding you back. Many people stay stuck because they fear releasing the familiar. They hold on to friendships that drain them, careers that no longer align with their soul, or habits that provide comfort but no growth. They cling to these things, not because they are helpful, but because they are known. But comfort is not the same as fulfillment, and familiarity is not the same as purpose. Letting go requires courage. The courage to trust that you will not lose yourself by releasing what weighs you down, but rather you will discover yourself more deeply. Think about the person who remains in a relationship long after love has faded, simply because they fear being alone, or the individual who keeps repeating destructive habits because they don't know who they would be without them. The tragedy lies not in what they are holding on to, but in the growth they are sacrificing. There is a simple truth. If you want to rise, you cannot cling to what keeps you on the ground. Consider the story of an athlete who held on to unhealthy eating patterns for years. Though talented, his lack of discipline prevented him from reaching his potential. The moment he let go of those habits and embraced discipline, his career transformed. He realized that self-love meant giving up what sabotaged his body, even if it felt easier in the moment. Letting go also applies to the inner world. Many of us carry resentment, guilt, or shame, invisible weights that slow our steps. Holding on to anger at someone who wronged you is like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer. True self-love is the willingness to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. A practical way to begin letting go is through reflection. Ask yourself, does this person, habit, or thought bring me closer to my highest self? Or does it pull me away? If the answer is the latter, it may be time to release it with gratitude. Yes, gratitude, because even the things you outgrow once had a purpose. They taught you lessons, revealed your strength, or gave you clarity. You don't need to hate the past to move beyond it. You only need to thank it, and then move forward. Letting go is not about loss. It is about space. When you release what no longer serves you, you make room for what truly does. The empty hands that let go of the past become open hands, ready to receive the future. So ask yourself, what am I still holding on to that no longer belongs in my next chapter? It may be a habit, a belief, or even a person. And then, with love, begin the process of release. Because at the end of the day, loving yourself enough to level up means choosing not to carry yesterday's burdens into tomorrow's victories. One of the hardest lessons in self-love is learning to let go, letting go of people, habits, and situations that no longer serve your growth. It is human nature to cling to what is familiar, even when it hurts us. The known often feels safer than the unknown, but loving yourself enough to level up requires courage, and sometimes that courage is expressed not in holding on tighter, but in releasing your grip. Think of a person carrying a heavy bag filled with stones. Each stone represents something: an unhealthy relationship, a destructive habit, an old regret, or a limiting belief. The weight slows them down. They struggle to walk forward. Yet they refuse to set the bag down, because it has been with them for so long. Now imagine what would happen if they finally released it. Their steps would be lighter. Their energy would return. Suddenly, the path forward would feel possible again. We often underestimate how much the past holds us back. An old wound can keep us from trusting again. A failed attempt can stop us from trying once more. A toxic relationship can convince us that we are not worthy of love. But none of these burdens define you. They are chapters in your story, not the entire book. The moment you decide to let them go, you begin writing a new chapter, one that reflects strength, freedom, and growth. Letting go does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean pretending something never mattered. It means making peace with what happened, extracting the lesson, and refusing to let it control your present. The past is a teacher, not a prison. Take, for example, someone who clings to a job that drains their soul. They know deep down that it is not aligned with their purpose. But fear keeps them rooted in place. Fear of financial instability, fear of judgment, fear of failure. Yet the longer they stay, the more their spirit withers. One day, with courage, they step away. It is terrifying at first. But in the space created by letting go, new opportunities flow in. By closing one door, they made room for another to open. The same applies to relationships. Sometimes we hold on to people because of shared history, out of guilt, or from the hope they will change. But real love, for yourself and for others, is sometimes found in release. If a connection consistently steals your peace, diminishes your worth, or holds you back from growth, then letting go is not cruelty. It is an act of love. It takes courage to let go, because it means embracing uncertainty. But uncertainty is not your enemy. It is the space where new possibilities are born. When you clear away what no longer serves you, you create room for what truly belongs. A practical way to begin this process is through reflection. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that is keeping me from moving forward? Write it down. Then ask, if I let this go, what would I gain? Often, the answer is peace, freedom, or energy. Those are signs pointing toward your next step. Remember this truth: life is always moving forward. You cannot reach tomorrow while holding on too tightly to yesterday. The river of life flows, and when you release what weighs you down, you allow yourself to move with it. not against it. So love yourself enough to let go. Release the stone you've been carrying, even if your hands feel empty at first. In time, those empty hands will be free to hold something far greater. The life you truly deserve. True transformation is not built in a single moment of inspiration. It is forged in the quiet repetition of small choices, day after day. The discipline of daily habits is the bridge between who you are and who you wish to become. Loving yourself enough to level up means refusing to leave your growth to chance. Instead, you create a system, a rhythm of life that supports the person you are becoming. Consider this. A sculptor does not carve a masterpiece in one strike. It is the repeated chisel, patient and steady, that shapes the stone into beauty. In the same way, it is not one grand effort that builds your character, your health, or your success, but the daily habits you practice without applause. Too often, people underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. They want instant results. The perfect body, the thriving business, the peaceful mind. And when it doesn't happen quickly, they give up. But growth does not work that way. Greatness is not an event. It is a process. Think of the habit of reading just 10 pages a day. It may not seem like much in the moment, but over a year, that simple commitment could add up to more than 3,000 pages of wisdom, new perspectives, and growth. Or consider someone who chooses to walk for 20 minutes each morning. At first, it may feel insignificant, but over months, it builds stamina, strength, and clarity of mind. Daily habits are acts of self-love because they reflect the belief that your future is worth investing in. You brush your teeth each day because you care about your health. In the same way, you can nurture habits that protect your mental clarity, your finances, your relationships, and your dreams. But habits require discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment, but in truth, it is the highest form of kindness to yourself. Discipline says, I care enough about my future to make choices today that will serve me tomorrow. Of course, discipline is not always easy. There will be days when motivation feels distant. This is where structure helps. If you want to build better habits, start small and be consistent. Attach new habits to existing ones. For example, after you make your morning tea, sit for 5 minutes in quiet reflection. After brushing your teeth, write down one gratitude in a journal. These small linkages make habits natural instead of forced. And remember, discipline is not perfection. You will miss days, and that is okay. What matters is that you return. The danger is not in falling, but in failing to rise again. A man once decided to change his life by committing to a morning routine. He woke up early, read something uplifting, exercised, and set 3 priorities for the day. At first, it felt challenging, and many mornings he wanted to quit. But within months, his life began to shift. He had more energy, clarity, and confidence. His relationships improved because he carried peace within him. None of this happened overnight. It was the accumulation of daily habits, gently layered, one upon another. There is a quiet dignity in discipline. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't seek recognition. But over time, it shapes your destiny. Each habit you choose is like a brick laid in the foundation of your future self. So ask yourself, what are the habits that align with the person I wish to become? What small actions can I repeat daily that reflect love and respect for my mind, body, and soul? Because in the end, success is not about extraordinary moments. It is about ordinary choices made with extraordinary consistency. And when you discipline yourself to live by habits that uplift you, you are declaring to the world and to yourself, I love myself enough to level up. Loving yourself enough to level up isn't about grand gestures made once in a while. It's not about promising yourself that one day you'll change or waiting for the perfect moment to begin. Real self-love is proven in the quiet, steady, consistent actions you take every single day, even when no one is watching, even when motivation runs dry. Consistency is the language of self-love because it shows that you care enough about yourself to keep showing up. Think about the nature of trust. If a friend shows up for you only when it's convenient, you begin to question their commitment. But if they are steady, if they call, check in, and stand by their word, you feel secure. In the same way, you either build or break trust with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen that inner bond. Every time you neglect it, you weaken the foundation. One of the greatest misconceptions about growth is that it requires intensity. People often believe that unless they overhaul their entire life overnight, nothing will change. But the truth is, it is not intensity that changes lives. It is consistency. A glass of water doesn't carve stone by being poured all at once. It does so by dripping steadily, day after day, until the rock surrenders. Take the story of a man who decided to transform his health. At first, he thought he needed to run marathons or adopt extreme diets. But every time he tried, he burned out within weeks. Finally, he committed to something smaller, a 20-minute walk every evening and one healthier meal a day. Slowly, without pressure, the small choices compounded. Within a year, his body and mind were transformed, not by drastic change, but by steady, faithful consistency. Self-love means you believe your future is worth building brick by brick. It means you don't abandon yourself when things get hard. Consistency teaches discipline, resilience, and patience. And these are the true markers of growth. Of course, consistency is not glamorous. It rarely gets applause. No one claps when you choose to read instead of scroll, when you prepare a healthy meal, when you save a small amount of money, or when you show up early for work. But over time, these small, Unseen actions compound into extraordinary results. Think of a tree. You water it daily, yet you see no change for weeks, maybe months. But beneath the soil, roots are forming, unseen but vital. One day, seemingly all at once, growth bursts through the surface. Consistency works the same way. You may not see immediate results, but beneath the surface, transformation is taking place. To cultivate consistency, begin by lowering the barrier to entry. Start small enough that you cannot fail. If your goal is to read more, begin with 1 page a day. If you want to exercise, begin with 5 minutes of stretching. The act of showing up matters more than the size of the action. Once momentum builds, growth becomes natural. There will be days you feel uninspired, days when fatigue and doubt whisper, "Skip it just this once." In those moments, remember that consistency is not about perfection. It is about return. Missing one day does not destroy progress. What matters is returning the next day with renewed determination. Loving yourself enough to stay consistent is the ultimate proof of commitment. It says, "I value my health, I value my growth, I value my dreams, and I will not abandon myself, no matter how slow the process feels." So keep showing up. Water the seed. Take the step. Honor your word. Because in the language of self-love, consistency speaks louder than intensity, louder than promises, and louder than excuses. There comes a moment in your journey of self-love when you begin to realize that leveling up is not about comparison, competition, or chasing what others have. It is about alignment. Alignment with the truest, highest version of who you are meant to be. To become your highest self is not to transform into someone else. It is to shed the layers of fear, doubt, and limitation, so that the most authentic version of you can shine through. Think of a sculptor standing before a block of marble. The masterpiece already exists within the stone. The sculptor's role is simply to chip away at what does not belong. In the same way, your highest self is already within you. Every time you let go of toxic habits, negative beliefs, and environments that weigh you down, you are chiseling away at the stone to reveal the greatness already inside. The path to your highest self begins with vision. You must ask yourself, who do I truly want to become? What values do I want to live by? What kind of impact do I want to leave behind? Without vision, life becomes reactive. You drift wherever the wind blows. But with vision, you take the driver's seat of your destiny. One practical exercise is to close your eyes and imagine your ideal self 5 years from now. See the way this version of you walks, speaks, and interacts with the world. What daily habits shape their life? What relationships surround them? What kind of peace radiates from within? This exercise is not fantasy, it is clarity. Once you see it clearly, you can begin to live in alignment with it today. But vision alone is not enough. Becoming your highest self requires discipline. It requires choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. The highest version of you does not procrastinate endlessly. They take consistent steps toward their goals. They do not hold on to bitterness. They forgive, because peace is more valuable than pride. They do not drown in distractions. They focus on what truly matters. Every small decision is a brushstroke painting the picture of your future self. There will be resistance, of course. The mind will cling to old patterns. People around you may resist your change because your growth challenges their comfort. But remember, you are not here to shrink for the sake of others. You are here to expand, to rise, and in rising, to inspire others to rise as well. Think of the phoenix, the mythical bird that burns in its own fire only to be reborn stronger, brighter, and freer. Becoming your highest self is a similar rebirth. You let parts of your old self fall away. And though the process can feel painful, it is only clearing the way for the stronger, wiser you to emerge. Another key part of reaching your highest self is contribution. A life lived only for oneself remains incomplete. When you love yourself deeply, you naturally overflow with the desire to uplift others. The highest version of you does not hoard wisdom or success. They share it. They serve. They make a difference in the lives they touch. And in giving, they expand even more. Above all, your highest self is not a final destination. It is a lifelong journey. Each level you reach opens a door to the next. There is always more depth, more wisdom, more light to uncover. And that is the beauty of it. You are forever becoming. So, as you move forward, ask yourself in every choice, every challenge, every opportunity, is this aligned with the person I am becoming? Does this honor my highest self? If the answer is yes, move boldly. If the answer is no, let it go. To love yourself enough to level up means to never stop reaching for that highest version of you. And with every step, every lesson, every act of courage, you are already becoming it. As we come to the end of this journey, pause for a moment and reflect on where you began. You started by exploring the foundation of self-love, learning that it is not arrogance, but respect. Respect for your time, your energy, your dreams, and your very existence. Without that foundation, the house of your life cannot stand strong. Then you move deeper, recognizing your worth, building boundaries, choosing growth over comfort, and daring to walk a path where many are too afraid to tread. With each step, you were reminded that loving yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. It is the act of acknowledging that your life is valuable and that you must protect and nurture it in order to give your best to the world. This audiobook was never just about listening to ideas. It has always been about an invitation to rise, to level up in the way you think, the way you live, the way you see yourself. Because the truth is, everything in life flows from the relationship you have with yourself. If you believe you are unworthy, you will accept less than you deserve. If you believe you are limited, you will shrink into the shadows. But when you believe you are worthy, when you embrace your strength, when you honor your potential, the world cannot help but respond. Remember the seed breaking through the soil, the sculptor chiseling away the stone, the phoenix rising from fire. These are not just metaphors. They are mirrors of your own journey. Growth is never easy. It demands courage, patience, and persistence. It asks you to walk into discomfort, to release what no longer serves you, and to trust the process, even when the results are not yet visible. But those who stay the course always emerge transformed. Loving yourself enough to level up also means recognizing that you are a work in progress. And that is a beautiful thing. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt. But setbacks are not signs of failure. They are lessons guiding you back onto the path. Each stumble can teach you resilience. Each challenge can sharpen your vision. Each moment of uncertainty can deepen your faith in what is possible. The highest version of you is not waiting somewhere far away. It is already inside you, quietly calling out, asking to be expressed. Every time you choose self-discipline over distraction, you bring that version closer. Every time you set a boundary that protects your peace, you strengthen it. Every time you say yes to growth and no to fear, you embody it. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Your life is happening here, in this breath, in this choice, in this step forward. And as you step, remember, you do not need permission to rise. You do not need validation to shine. You are already enough. And yet, you are capable of becoming even more. So let this be your commitment. Love yourself enough to rest when needed, to work when required, to walk away when necessary, and to stay true when tested. Love yourself enough to honor your worth and refuse to shrink. Love yourself enough to level up in your health, your relationships, your career, and your spirit. And finally, never forget you are not alone on this journey. Every person striving for growth, every soul choosing courage, every heart learning to love itself is walking beside you in spirit. Together, we are all becoming, so rise, grow, evolve. Love yourself enough to keep leveling up until your life becomes the masterpiece it was always meant to be.